masuk dan melihat para wakil rakyat yang ada di dalam.
National human rights institutions have a lot to contribute to the promotion of Indigenous peoples' rights at the international level. First of all, they can help promote those rights and strengthen those rights within the international setting. There's a lot of learning to be done among various parts of the UN system, among the governments of the world when they come together in multilateral settings. And national human rights institutions have a lot of credibility, and when they engage in discussions about the rights of Indigenous peoples and promote those rights and bring to the table their experiences from the national setting.
It's an interesting development that when you look back some 20 years, you realize that there wasn't really anything specifically devoted to the rights of Indigenous. Today, situation has changed very much, and we have 3 mechanisms that are devoted to the rights of Indigenous peoples and related issues in the UN system. We have the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, which looks at human rights but also economic, social and other areas. Then we have a Special Rapporteur on Indigenous Peoples who works on country-specific reports, examines complaints from Indigenous peoples, and also does some thematic work. And then as a new kid on the block, we have the expert mechanism on the rights of Indigenous peoples. And their purpose is to provide thematic advice to the Human Rights Council. And they have also looked at the implementation of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which is the common tool that all 3 of these mechanisms use on a daily basis in their work.
National institutions can also highlight Indigenous issues when countries come before the treaty bodies or for the Universal Periodic Review. They can bring a much more detailed understanding and analysis of the issues, of what is working and what is not. When national institutions are independent and comply with the Paris principles, they can be a credible source of information for the international mechanisms.
The importance of the international level is that it can reinforce and legitimise what we're doing on the ground. Each country has to report periodically on their compliance with the covenants and conventions they've signed up to, and it provides an opportunity to highlight the situations of particular groups whose human rights are not being realised. And then to get recommendations back. These are recommendations to the state, but national human rights institutions can use those as a tool to further push for changes that are necessary or the developments that are necessary.
National human rights institutions are credible fact finders. That's what they do on a day-to-day basis at the national level. And so the facts that they are able to reveal about the conditions of Indigenous peoples are very useful to the multilateral discussions that occur at the international level on the rights of Indigenous peoples. They're very useful to developing policies to avoid problems of violations of the rights of Indigenous peoples, of promoting good practices concerning the rights of Indigenous peoples. And so in these ways, national human rights institutions, I think, have a great deal to contribute.